It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. From Fanfatrax TV, this is Good Morning Tatooine!
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name's Mark Mulcaster, and I am from Fanfatrax Making Tracks podcast. And here I am in the purple Star Wars collection room of Doom, and not at Star Wars Celebration, but I've come here so we can have a chat about the new episodes of Kenobi, which dropped earlier on today. In fact, earlier this morning, about 5 a.m. So thank you for joining me. If you get a chance to write a comment or like and share and everything else, then please, by all means, do that. So make sure that you have liked and subscribed to YouTube, as the graphics are saying up top, which is great. And I obviously... Mark is at Star Wars Celebration. Most of the Fanfatrax team is at Star Wars Celebration. But I have found somebody, I've collared one of our greatest and loveliest fanfers, and she isn't at Star Wars Celebration, and she is going to be joining me now, all the way from, well, she was the Irish Greek girl, but she's now skipped school, so she can join me, and that is, of course, Claire Henry. So, Claire, how are you doing?
I am very well. The FOMO is killing me.
Yeah.
I am gutted. I am gutted not to be at Celebration. It looks awful. Looks really boring.
Purple, doesn't it? Yeah.
Doesn't seem to have anything has really happened in it. I'm awful. But yeah, I am gutted not to be there. I'm so sorry. This is the first Celebration I haven't been to for
Really?
nearly 15 years. So yeah. I'm really sad not to be there, but hey ho, I'm with you, Mark, and we're going to talk some fantastic stuff about Kenobi today. I know.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. And in fact, actually, what's quite reassuring is, unless you were in the panel yesterday for Lucasfilm, a lot of people have spoken to me who are at Celebration haven't seen it. They haven't been able to log on to Disney Plus from the UK to view it. So I'm like, where you go, swings and roundabouts,
Yeah, I know. That's what that was my take on it. That was my sort of like, oh well, I've got to see it because I've been talking to some of the guys who are out there, obviously, and none of them have seen it. No, except for Matt, who obviously has. He was one of the lucky ones to get into the screening of it late last night for him as well, early morning for us.
Yes, well, you saw it at 5, didn't you? You got up.
Yeah,
So
so you and I had this conversation last week, didn't
yep.
we? And I said they're going to drop that midnight. And I wasn't far wrong because
Yeah.
how could you go to Celebration, have the Lucasfilm, panel, and
Mm.
then sort of say, do you know what? Now, just away you go, subscribe, go on to Disney Plus and watch it at home. There was no way that was going to
No,
happen. So I thought to myself, they're going to show it, to fans in Celebration, and then they're
absolutely.
going to drop it. So, perimenopausal women will know that midnight and through to 5 o'clock in the morning is easy. So I was up at 10 to 5, dropped down, cup of tea, as people have saw when I posted it on Fantha Tracks today on Facebook and Instagram, sitting
Yeah.
watching it in bliss.
Nice and quiet. Yeah, I had to wait a couple of hours just for the house to wake up and for the kids to go to school and that. But saw it about just before 8 and that. So it was it looked stunning, that. So before we get on to Kenobi, let's talk a little bit about the panel yesterday. And obviously, it wasn't streamed on the Star Wars YouTube channel, which is a bit of a
I
shame.
know. Well, I just thought that was a really weird thing to do. They could have even lagged it maybe 50 minutes
Yeah,
because obviously I've not been in this situation before where I'm not at Celebration. And fellow Fantha Tracker Andrew Walker and I were talking about this because he's not there. And we were like, right, sit down, ready to watch it. And then realised it wasn't being shown. Now, of course, obviously the Star Wars show bits were all being shown, but,
yeah.
from when they came out afterwards. But it would have been nice, I think, to have shown it to
Yeah,
people at
yeah.
home.
I mean that's the thing because it's it's not like it was a panel that they didn't kind of advertise and promote and push. It was on StarWars.com and they talked about it on all
Mhm.
the Star Wars shows and that. They could have actually streamed it, as actually Fanfatrax is saying. They could have streamed it and just blanked out. Just basically cut off when they got to the Mando stuff. Because I'm guessing, basically, from what I understand from following it all on TweetDeck yesterday, the only thing that we really didn't get was the Mando sneak peek for season 3.
Yeah.
So, they could have cut away to something else. They could have shown us the Willow trailer again, or another, just shown us the Andor trailer again, just to kind of, keep it
Or
going and that.
just keep us interested, or
Yeah.
not that we're not interested. That's not what I mean. But just make us feel like we're there a little bit, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
exactly. Because it's great that they've always done the live stream. And for me, because I've never been able to get out to the States to see it. So when they do the live stream, it does obviously make you feel a little bit more connected rather than just having to go on people's reactions on Twitter and Facebook and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm really
Yeah.
grateful for that. But then obviously you get a big panel like this, which is meant to be the showcase. This is what, Lucasfilm's kind of been pushing and stuff. Is going to, it's not even just about the future of Star Wars. It's meant to be the future of Lucasfilm. And, so we had, a sneak peek from Willow, the trailer, and obviously
Yes. Now
Indiana
that
Jones.
looks good. I watched that. Now Willow has always been something to me that's been a bit of a I watched
Yeah,
it, but it was like, yeah, not really. But actually, it looked really good, and I see
it looks
that
pretty cool.
the actress who was in Solo's in it.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah. Enfys Nest. What's her
Memphis
face?
Nest.
Yeah. Erin Kellyman. That's it. Yeah.
That's it, Erin Kellerman. I saw that she was in it, and it looks like
Yeah.
it's quite good.
Yeah. I mean, I tell you what, it's going to be interesting, just because obviously we're going to be getting Lord of the Rings on Amazon Prime, and that's got a very kind of similar kind of, I think, vibe to it. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how the two kind of match up, considering how much money Amazon has chucked at Lord of the Rings TV. I mean, from what I saw from Willow yesterday, it looks stunning, and it's great to see Warwick in there and his daughters in there and that, and so I think it's going to be a really fun kind of little
Yeah,
adventure.
I think it's going to be quite witty. I think the Lord of the Rings is probably going to be quite, well, not serious, but I'm hoping that
Heavy.
for Willow it'll be a bit more of a light-hearted relief from the
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. I think
Mm.
the Lord of the Rings is going to be quite a heavy going, but great show. But I think Willow will be that sort of light-hearted take on those sort of worlds, if that makes sense, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So obviously we finally got to see something from Andor, which has been,
Oh,
a while
thank
coming.
God. I mean, how long did that take?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's been coming, and obviously I think both me and Mark were talking about it, making tracks. I'm like, well, if it doesn't happen on May the 4th, it's got to happen at Celebration. Come on, it's out this year. You can't kind of like let it go, so long and not see anything. The last time we saw a sneak peek was at that investors stream, what, 2-3 years ago? So.
Yeah.
And they were in production then. Obviously, pandemic hasn't helped and everything else. But what was your kind of initial thoughts on that from what you saw?
Oh, well, to see Mon Mothma, first of all, amazing.
Yeah,
I'm really pleased that she seems to have a central role in it. And I don't know, have you read the book Catalyst?
yeah. I read it just before Rogue One came out. Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
while ago.
So
But yeah.
I have a feeling that that's going to play a part
Hmm.
in Andor and I'm hoping that we'll see a bit of sort of the Death Star
Yeah,
creation, that etc. So I think we're going to, I it looks really interesting to me. A bit like I love Rogue One. Rogue One is definitely my favorite sort of new Lucasfilm Star Wars ones, and I think that it's
yeah,
got that feel to it. It looks, the bright lights, the
yeah.
the 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 laboratories, the workings, and etc. The scientists, and that whole nonchalance up their own backside, so to speak, of the imperial,
Yeah.
sitting drinking tea, as if life
Mm.
doesn't matter to them. I think it's going to be absolutely cracking.
Yeah, that's what's actually interesting to me is just seeing that whole juxtaposition between, the very high elites of Coruscant and then obviously everybody down like 1313 and on all these kind of scummy, outlandish kind of worlds and stuff that we've not seen before. It'd be interesting just to see how completely contrasting it is. And obviously we do see a little bit of that kind of contrast in Kenobi when we get to it. But I think that's going to be interesting, and it's going to be really interesting just to hopefully have these two stories. The political one with Mon Mothma and Andor story, and see them how they kind of meet in the middle at some point. Because hopefully, I guess you've got Andor coming from one direction and Mon Mothma coming from the other direction, and then they're obviously going to meet, and obviously that's going to be a formation of a rebel alliance, really. So
Yeah,
that's going
yeah,
to
and I think we'll see hopefully the struggle, of how the empire is sort of developing in its way, and how
mm,
it's like seeing people into doing the things that they need it to do to succeed, etc. So, I'm looking forward to seeing Galen Erso. I'm
yeah,
looking forward to seeing Galen Erso coming in and um, see his role and see what he's doing and seeing where he's at. I think that's going to be excellent, to
yeah.
see if we can see that sort of progression through and that lead in to then into Rogue One, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so they did say that it was going to be 2 seasons. The first season's kind of like 12 episodes long, and that takes us from 5 years before Rogue One up to 4 years before Rogue One. But the second
Yeah,
season's meant to take us right up to the door of the beginning of Rogue One. So that will be fascinating to see how they
yeah.
compress that kind of time and kind of balance out the story from the beats perspective, just to see how it all kind of like pans out.
And it's interesting as well. So you can see that they did say that it would start, with Cassian's journey from, what he said in Rogue One about, the flags, etc., and
Yeah,
his upbringing and his life. So clearly, there's something massively traumatic has happened, because we see these children in sort of like an almost jungle forest type idyllic setting, and then the next thing you cut to quite an urban mining, earth destroyed, whatever
yeah.
thing. That's going to be an interesting thing to see. How did he actually, where did he come from, and how did he become sort of the mercenary that he is, where he's ruthless, really. We saw that in Rogue One, and
Mm.
it'll be interesting to see that journey that he's going to take for that. I think that's going to be fantastic. It looks like a sort of a mining community or something.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and what's quite fun was actually in the trailer we start to see very much like the end of the Clone Wars with some of the the vehicles and stuff that they're using. So it'll be, the kind of like landers and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see again if we see it kind of like a transition, a bit like we're kind of seeing in the Bad Batch as well. This
Yeah.
transition from Clone Wars era, Old Republic, through to the Empire and all its kind of like glory. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm very excited for Andor. I'm interested to see the locations, that we've all seen pitted out and
yeah,
photographs and everything, in England. I was still looking for places like that, but I didn't recognize anything at the minute. But yeah, I think, and the other thing about Andor and actually Kenobi, to a certain extent, and Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett, is it's lovely to see the nod to those minor characters and the actors that played them coming back.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's just incredible. How amazing that all those actors have all said, yeah, I'll come back and do it. Well, of
Do it.
course they're going to come back and do it. But I just think that the whole continuity then of it is just, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly. I mean, because you could think actually, in some respects, a character like Mon Mothma, who obviously, she's in the deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith, but then obviously she's in Rogue One. They could have easily have recasted somebody then, and they could have recasted somebody for the Andor series. It's so I'm quite happy they're doing that and they're following through that, and obviously we see that again in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series with returning cast members, and I think it, for me anyway, I think it's just creates a much more connective and kind of consistent kind of way of storytelling, which just
It
resonates.
seems like, and this is probably something that I always struggled with the new films. The new films were disjointed,
Hmm.
not necessarily, and the story was there, but it just felt, clunky.
Yeah,
Whereas they seem to have sat down, thought about it. I mean, she said, Kathleen Kennedy did say this in the Vanity Fair interview, that they sat down and realized that they had to take a reworking of how this story was working, how the stories were to be told to make
yeah,
them more interconnected. And I think the thought that's going into it now and the due diligence to it, I think is fantastic. I was Pablo Hidalgo today was sort of saying something about that on Twitter. How this has taken a while to come together, but it's all being pieced, and it's brilliant. It's interesting because actually, and maybe I'm going to digress a bit, but I thought that the sort of the storyline that we see in Kenobi
yeah.
was something that I thought may have happened in Andor.
Okay. Hmm.
I know you guys were talking about it in making tracks, but I just thought, oh wow, yeah, you've got me.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, that's it. And I think that the fact that they can still surprise us, and there was something with Kenobi that was fresh and new, but actually at the same time, when you think about the story, it's quite an old kind of story that's been done loads of different times. I mean, there's almost kind of you can almost say it's a little bit like Mandalorian with kind of like and Lone Wolf and Cub kind of vibe potentially going on a little bit with Kenobi and Leia and stuff,
Yeah,
but it's just the way it's been shown, and obviously it's been shot, and it just makes it feel kind of fresh and new, even though it's Star Wars, which has been around for 40 years.
yeah.
So
It was almost like a comfort blanket, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
When you started to watch it this morning again, and that's for any big franchise like that, you've got to hit your core fans and you've got to pull in new people. So,
exactly.
and how you do that it's a very fine line, is it? Because you don't want to upset the new, you don't want to upset the old fans, but you want to, but you want to draw them in, and you want to draw in new people into the franchise and into the story. And I think they've finally now started to manage it and starting to work it right.
Yeah, exactly. So, as a not referring to your age, but as an old fan, shall we say,
Yes.
what was your initial kind of reaction to Kenobi then? when you saw
Well,
it?
shall we say first of all, if you haven't watched Kenobi yet, don't watch it. Don't stop
Yeah,
now. And walk away, because we are going to absolutely massively spoil every single thing about it. So I'm quite happy to tell you my age. I'm 1 year short of 50. So I was 5 when I first saw Star Wars, and this morning my 5-year-old self came out of this. I was just blown
Mm.
away to the point that actually, when I saw little Leia getting dressed, or who we thought was little Leia getting dressed, I was just like, oh,
Yeah,
why didn't they have this 40 years, 45 years ago? Yeah, it was wonderful, wonderful to see. And it had me from the start.
yeah,
From that first intro, where it said, where they do the recap. And I
mm,
thought, what on earth are they going to recap? Oh, wow. Basically, the
yeah.
prequels in what, 45 seconds?
Pretty much, yeah. And a really nicely fluid kind of edit, which kind of worked, and it wasn't completely linear. It kind of jumped around a little bit, but it really helped to reinforce that relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, because it comes back to what you said just a minute ago. Ultimately, there will be people who would have put on Obi-Wan Kenobi who may never have seen Star Wars, or may have seen the original trilogy, but may not have seen the prequels, and therefore you've got to catch them up on all this storytelling, which is important until so they can kind of get an idea of where things are. So um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so
And then
the
and then you move into it, and it's just like boom. Oh, I was like, oh my God, right, okay, what's going on here? And the little Easter eggs that you see throughout it. So,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, that bit there was just incredible. That was an incredible scene, wasn't it?
yeah. I
You know,
mean, starting with Order 66, like this, I mean, what is really exciting and what I really have enjoyed in the last few years is being able to see Order 66 from various different perspectives. We see it from the Bad Batch, we saw it from Ahsoka's perspective, we see it from Cal Kestis's perspective in Jedi Fallen Order. Now we see it from the perspective of younglings in the
yeah,
temple and that. Obviously, names will probably, I'm going to get muddled up with all the Jedi names and stuff like that. But the Jedi Master, obviously, she does really well. To be fair, she takes down a few clone troopers and that. But then ultimately, it's inevitable she's gonna get a blaster bolt, in the body.
even though they shoot badly, they did all right, didn't they? But yeah,
Yeah.
again, just to see those the Jedi movement from it, and the viewpoint from the younglings,
Yes.
that they are they are totally involved in the order, and
Mm.
will do what they're told, etc., etc. So again, you look at it from that point of view. Oh, it's a bit of a cult, actually, really. But it was, again, you felt for them. You knew that the thing was, is, but if you'd watched the prequels, you knew that resistance was futile.
Yeah. Pretty much.
But
Yeah.
then to see them battling it through because they didn't know what was coming to them, I thought that whole opening sequence was just incredible. Great to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and I think it was a good kind of strong explanation point just to start with, just to kind of grab people's attentions. Now, out of those Padawans, there was one quite independent young lady with kind of like curly hair and that black girl. Do you think? I mean, it was. I assumed that this is basically Reva. This is why we cut from that pretty much to the next thing we see is the Inquisitors arriving on Tatooine in Mos Eisley.
Yes,
So
I think so. I think that she's been twisted, and the warped view maybe that she gets from it is, from her experience. Obviously, something she's got more beef with Obi-Wan than we know, and I think it probably lends back to Order 66, and the fact that she probably was abandoned, if she's got that abandoned sense about her. I mean,
Mm.
to see them in that cantina, Rupert Friend, I again sent chills down my spine. They were evil. They
Yeah.
were proper, I'm going to come out and censor all you lot. I'm going to take you out and pick you off one by one. And and for a way, and a way for me, having not really watched sort of or read deeply into that period of time, I forget that Jedi did exist. For
Mm.
me, it was always
Yeah.
just Ben Kenobi stuck in a dune somewhere in Tatooine, and Ahsoka. Okay, I kind of got that somehow, but I wasn't quite sure when. And then you think about it, there's probably thousands of them about in the galaxy.
Yeah.
So it really
All
interesting.
Yeah, because obviously we see actually in Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan and Yoda go back to the Jedi Temple, and the thing that they do is they change that emergency beacon message to say "Stay away from the temple." Basically, go and hide.
Yeah,
There's nothing left. And I mean, for me anyway, that scene in the cantina was very kind of. It reminded me very much of like the first opening 15 minutes of Inglorious Bastards by Quentin
oh
Tarantino.
yes, yeah,
Uh, I mean, now obviously that is probably, that takes a lot of time to set up, and that's why that the tension in that scene takes 15 minutes to build to. But I think they did a really good job of kind
yeah.
of basically compressing that. And I mean, to be honest, I was really surprised. I wasn't expecting to see another Jedi on Tatooine, and to see one kind of basically in Mos Eisley, close to where Obi-Wan is, I thought was quite fascinating. Was quite an interesting kind of choice. I mean, I wasn't
And the
expecting.
fact that the two of them never sensed each other, or well, maybe
Yeah,
maybe Obi-Wan did, because he certainly, when you see later on, after the scene where the Jawa brings the Jedi belt, etc.,
yeah,
etc., to him, and he's, and you see him in the desert with the Jedi, you know, I think probably Obi-Wan did know he was there, but just was, well, as we know, was keeping his head down, really, wasn't he?
yeah. I mean, I suppose the other Jedi looked quite a bit younger. He was probably a Jedi Knight. Obi-Wan, obviously more experienced. I wouldn't be surprised, and I think we kind of see this actually in the second episode. But I kind of think that possibly Obi-Wan might be closing himself off for the Force to kind of like limit how much of I guess you could say like a Force echo he's kind of creating, with
Yeah.
his presence. Um, so overall, what do you make of Inquisitors? Do you think they worked? Do you think like Rupert Friend as a Grand Inquisitor worked and all that?
Oh, I thought he did, but I see that Phil was had commented there a bit about sort of the friends aspect about it. I thought they were good. I thought they were believable hunters, sort of
Mm,
that. Yes, the downside was Friend's interpretation of the Grand Inquisitor. Yeah, yeah, I get where he's coming from about it, but actually, for me, their job is to root out
yeah.
the Jedi. They clearly have set up the fear in the people. The people knew who they were, and then when you see him with Owen and Reva like threatening him, I'm
Mm,
gonna kill him if you don't tell me, etc. So there's clearly a lot of fear, but they still have that sense of the Jedi about them, which I thought was, I thought they were so anti-Jedi that they wouldn't necessarily be in the way of the Jedi as much as they were,
yeah.
patience and calmness, etc. Clearly, obviously, Reva's not, but the Grand Inquisitor, certainly he seemed to be. I thought Rupert Friend did a really good job until he
Yeah.
got
I mean,
bumped
for me,
off.
I mean, for me personally, I think that I mean, he had stated in an I think might have been Empire or something. He basically stated that he hadn't studied, hadn't looked at any of the previous kind of Grand Inquisitor work on Star Wars Rebels, so they wanted a new interpretation for whatever reason. Um, and so it is a bit jarring for me, as somebody who kind of like really liked the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels. But I
Yeah,
quite like this notion that actually there's a calmness about him, but there's clearly an arrogance. He really likes to talk. He's kind of there holding court in that cantina, kind of,
yes,
you know. But that again that's probably the propaganda aspect. The propaganda machine working. It's like if you get the local population to work, against the Jedi, they're more likely to point at one and go, "He's a Jedi."
that's
You
in
know,
there. I mean,
so
it is, as you say, classic sort of World War II,
yeah, Gestapo.
resistance,
Yeah.
and the fight against it, that fear that's created, and you could sense that fear, you know,
Mm. Yeah,
from
exactly.
the
Yeah.
population. It was. I quite. I like. I mean, I've watched all of Rebels too. It's the one cartoon I did watch, and I animated show, and I absolutely loved it. But yeah, they're very different,
Yeah, very
I
different.
think.
But I think we're kind of come and reconcile that at some point. We'll have to in our own headcanon and stuff. But I mean, it's
Mm.
interesting to obviously see Obi-Wan's day to day. He's working in that I don't know, giant desert fish
Butchery, yeah,
butchery. Yeah,
yeah.
which is interesting.
I like the way they put the token into the power droid, the gunk droid, to get their credits for when they
Oh,
walked out. I thought that was
yeah,
quite. I thought, oh, that all these things that you'll see probably pop up in cosplay later on at some point. And but again, the fact that who would have believed that a Grand Jedi Master would be there hacking away at a fillet of, I don't know,
yeah. I
sand
don't know.
snake, sandfish,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
make
I
me a
mean, and
tomahawk steak out of that type thing. Mm.
possibly, yeah. Uh,
I did think, and this
I
is
mean,
stupid, and don't,
it's good fun
this
actually.
this is
Mm.
quite a funny thing. So, when the horn blew and they all downed tools and they all stuck their tokens in to get their money, etc. And I looked, and this is obviously, me thinking, and they're going to leave that meat out all night until
Yeah,
the next
I know.
day until they come and get it. Ooh, I
In
don't
this,
think I particularly want to
yeah,
eat that.
I know. I was starting to wonder. Obviously he feeds it to his EOP, but you're like, is that for human consumption, or is this like, do they go and dry it out for leather or something, or some
Yeah.
weird stuff, beef like as Evan says, Purgle. Maybe it could be a Purgle, like a dead Purgle from Rebels. Yeah, um,
It could be, it could be,
yeah,
and then of course, then you see Obi-Wan. I mean, this is how ridiculous, like the details that I see in the
yeah,
in the in the TV shows. So then you see Obi-Wan go back and make his own dinner,
yeah,
and lo and behold, a stew appears. A bit like the 1/4 portions in the
yeah.
Force
So like the bread.
Awakens when Rey cooks her dinner. I was like, oh, that's a really interesting thing as well.
Yeah, and I mean, what's nice about that whole scene, obviously, is there's a very kind of domesticated, kind of homely vibe about it. You've got the Jawa coming in, and they get a little bit of banter going on and stuff, and that really cool, nice little Easter egg where you see the Jawa give him the T-16 Skyhopper, which obviously we see in A New Hope, Luke flying
Oh, I
around and all that.
missed that bit. Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And I mean, what was really nice, and again, it's just how good the storytelling for these two episodes is that obviously it all leads really well and it flows really well. He leaves it outside the homestead. Obviously, Owen's up at the crack of dawn. He sees it. He knows exactly who it's come from, and that's what then kind of sparks their confrontation that they get
Yeah.
back in
Yeah.
Mos Eisley.
But
So
isn't that
that's
nice to see? Luke Skywalker has that, however many years later.
yeah, yeah. Well, 10 years later, isn't it? So
Yeah.
either Owen kind of feels guilty and goes and finds one and gives it to him, or maybe we actually see, and maybe we see this by the end of this season, that actually there's a reconciliation between Owen and Ben to a degree, and actually Owen lets him kind of give it to Luke. So it'll be interesting to see how their dynamic, because obviously at one point you think when Reva's there and she's got the lightsaber to his throat, you're thinking, oh, could he give him up? Is he actually going to turn and say, yeah, if you look over in that alcove there's fucking Obi-Wan Kenobi,
Yeah, go get him, not
You know,
me. Take him out.
exactly. I mean, obviously, we then kind of move on quite in quite a contrast from the very drab and very kind of dry and desaturated image of Tatooine to this luscious, vibrant Alderaan, which, you know, for me
And
anyway,
that is
wasn't
when,
expecting.
yeah, and that is when my heart just went, that can only be one place.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Yeah.
I sobbed. I actually physically was, oh my God, it is. Is it? And
Yeah,
look, oh,
there she is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, to be honest, I mean, I wasn't expecting Leia to be in this at all, and so far, I think probably the biggest treat and the biggest joy from these two episodes is, you know, Leia, this character, and there are points in that which kind of it really got to me, and it wasn't because of like her performance, but I was just like, oh, Carrie, you know, you just think it wouldn't have been great for Carrie to have maybe been able to kind of see this and see little Leia kind of running around and stuff, because you could imagine Carrie would be very similar, impetuous like that.
I could imagine her sort of giving, sort of quips and things like that. But that actress or the actor that the little girl that played her, I did see her name earlier on, but I can't remember her name.
Mm,
She absolutely nailed what I thought Leia as a young girl would be:
yeah,
feisty, opinionated, stubborn, doesn't do as she's told. In fact, it's pretty much sounds like my own daughter at the minute, to be honest. But absolutely everything that I thought Leia would be.
yeah.
And the
Oh,
fact
yeah,
that she was out running in the forest, that she had her robot friend, and that links in quite nicely to Claudia Gray's
okay.
novels about Leia.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see, if you've read them, you can see sort of the links between Lyra. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Vivian
That
Lara
was
Blair. Yeah.
Vivian Lyra Bray. She was brilliant. But you can see the links that Claudia Gray has written in the stories that she's written about Leia.
Mm-hmm.
That journey to the Senate school, etc., etc. Because in the
Yeah,
books, she was a reluctant student in the sense that, she was feisty. She had her own opinions. She wanted to do it. She was leaping before she could walk, so to speak. And so
yeah.
to hear mum and dad saying all this to her and her literally rolling her eyes going, you know, was just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, the chemistry that she has with Bail Organa, I think, it just leaps off of the screen. Billy Jimmy Smith is just he has a really kind of nice kind of way of bringing light to fairly serious kind of points. She does run off and stuff, and obviously we see that that gets her into danger later on in that. But obviously you've got Bria, her mother, who's kind of like saying, you need to be more kind of, you know, princessy,
Regal,
regal, exactly.
princessy.
Yeah, and of course, we've got the the
Oh,
shall we
I
say the
wanted to
moon?
punch him in the face
Oh,
myself. I'd have done that, brat.
yeah. So Malika's just posted in the in the chat. No spoilers. Stuck at the XL until 6 o'clock. So I think Malika, you might want to log off and
We
catch
told
up
you,
with
we
the
told you to
chat.
leave, Malika. We told you to leave. You need to go. We're
Yeah,
absolutely going to spoil it rotten.
yeah, yeah.
Have a
I
great
mean,
time at the XL though, at MCM.
yeah, I'll see her tomorrow, no doubt, if I get a chance. So yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the thing, they've got a really nice, powerful dynamic there, really nice kind of interesting kind of family kind of dynamic going on. But also, what's quite interesting is from a casting perspective, you've got two kind of almost Hispanic looking Latin parents, and
Yeah.
they've really made the point of kind of creating that contrast to kind of, so obviously Leia is very much aware that she is adopted. I mean, obviously they have that conversation and stuff, which I thought was just a really nice way of kind of like bringing that up and actually kind of like, crossing that bridge of like, does Leia know or does she not know? But obviously, she's savvy enough to have worked it out.
Oh, very much so. And I think that also it leads into the how protected Leia's life as a young girl was.
Yeah.
That they were goading her and making fun of her because basically she wasn't allowed to do anything. Well, why
Yeah.
wasn't she allowed to do anything? Well, we all know why, because she is Darth Vader's daughter. And again, when that all comes to light in another of Claudia Gray's books,
In
uh,
Bloodline, yeah.
Bloodline, you see it, you understand the consequences of why they hid it for
Yeah.
so long, and it's it shows that they had this protective ring around her, and it wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And then obviously that then was the draw. Yes, there, and again, similar feels to A New Hope and Star Wars. Help me, Obi-Wan. In the time of the Clone Wars, blah 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 blah. You help my father, blah blah blah. Well, didn't that just smack of it again?
Yeah.
These little touches.
Yeah. That makes it feel familiar. And I mean, without spending, trying to play it too much, last week's episode of Making Tracks, actually Mark kind of, fairly astutely kind of said, will we see some kind of help me Obi-Wan Kenobi type moment? And there you go. That's exactly what it is,
We absolutely got it.
Exactly. And what is quite clever is obviously, again, it's the fact that Reva is cottoned onto the fact that Obi-Wan had a close relationship with Bail. If she can use Leia as leverage to then pull Obi-Wan out of hiding, that's probably the only thing that's going to do it, and that's what we see. So he gets captured. Well, she gets captured by Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. There you go, and
that's who it is.
Yeah.
I have been racking my brain all day working out.
Yeah.
I know you. I've seen you somewhere. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Of course.
Yeah.
Oh, wasn't he brilliant?
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I mean, he doesn't do many like screen appearances. He's done a few over the years, but I don't think he acts very regularly. So it's quite interesting that he was cast for this role. But I mean, absolutely spot on casting, and he does a really solid job. So really, really kind of like hands up to him. Yeah.
Oh, it was brilliant. And then when you see Leia being taken by him and the gang, she's not one bit scared, is she?
No, well. I mean, I think she's got the confidence that she knows that there's an army. There's even all around that is basically meant to be a fairly kind of like peace-loving kind of people. They've got security guards there. She's well protected, so she's like, it's okay. Somebody's going to come and rescue me in a minute. It's fine. So and as it turns out, it's Obi-Wan. So
and again, there was the nod to A New Hope.
Yes, exactly. Because of course, we think up until we see this episode, we assume that obviously she only knows of Obi-Wan or Ben Kenobi through maybe something that her father said, i.e. from, the conversation that he has off screen in Rogue One, to get her to Tatooine. But now we understand why suddenly she's like, Ben Kenobi, he's here, because suddenly, like, they've had this adventure. She's been rescued by him before, and it's such a small kind of like bit of kind of a passing observation there by the writers, but it works so well.
Oh, it was seamless. It was absolutely seamless. It was, and again, it just nods to it. And as people know, I am a Leia-centric fan, and I picked that up immediately. And I picked up, when he walked into her, and she didn't say, "Are you a little bit short for a stormtrooper?" But there was that whole feel to it again. It was just like, oh, tick, tick, tick.
Yeah,
Keep
and
going, keep going.
Yeah, and basically the green poncho that he puts her in, is basically straight out of Return of the Jedi,
Yeah,
which is
can I just say one thing? She is a woman or she is a girl after my own heart. If you've got a man buying you some clothes, add a little bit extra on as well and go for the gloves. Let's
yeah,
just accessorize my whole outfit. It doesn't matter if everybody's chasing me and there's a bounty on my head, and now everybody knows that the person that's trying to get me is wanted by the Inquisitors. Do you know what? I'll have those gloves as well as this cape. Brilliant. Love it. Just
absolutely.
made me laugh.
Yeah. I mean, and also it goes to kind of just show how kind of like, I wouldn't say oblivious she is to the danger, but like she's comfortable. It's like, as far as she's concerned, it's all gonna kind of like work out all right in the end. So why not get the gloves? So
Absolutely.
especially somebody else is paying. I mean, the fighting and like the scenes where Obi-Wan's had to kind of get really rough and kind of ready with like the kidnappers, I think really highlighted the fact that obviously, he's not been active. He's decking these guys, and then he's kind of like, he's shaking his fist as if to say,
Oh,
"Oh,
there was
that really
definitely
hurt."
a crack, wasn't there, in the fist when he punched one of them?
Yeah. So he probably actually hasn't had, we assume anyway, he probably hasn't had to do much kind of fighting or since he's been on Tatooine. So he's had 10 years of kind of fairly dormant, kind of like relaxed living. So suddenly he's got to kind of get into jump into action. He can't use his lightsaber. So
That
he's
draws
forced to use a
attention
blaster.
to himself.
Sorry.
That draws attention to himself, doesn't it? If he
Exactly.
can't
Yeah.
use it, at the minute he doesn't think that anybody knows it's him. He just thinks that everybody thinks it's just some random, been employed to come and get him. So he doesn't really understand what's happened until he's told, "You're Kenobi, she's coming for you," type thing.
Yeah, putting the bounty out on him, which of course is a great way, especially in somewhere like Dayu, which has clearly got a lot of bounty hunters and rough guys and girls and that who are all going to suddenly spot and get that kind of notification on their wrist comms and stuff like that to say, right, he's wanted, keep an eye out, and then you can just see if they start piling on. It's we get 5 LOM. I can say it's 5 LOM. I don't actually know if it's 5 or 4
No, I
LOM.
know. I didn't know which one it was, but brilliant.
Yeah, you get him, and and all the other kind of bounty hunters who kind of pile on. We have a nice kind of rooftop battle, and you start to see Reva kind of works out from where she is, what's going on, and so she starts kind of making her way over there, and suddenly the tension is being built, and ultimately the problem he's still got is he's still got this princess who's kind of like still kind of seems to be quite oblivious to the fact that
A
they're
huffy
getting
little
shot at.
madam who is not moving anywhere, and
No,
the whole banter with her. I mean, whoever the writer were just brilliant. Like the quip about grandfather, more like. I mean,
yeah,
genius, just so funny about describing Obi-Wan like a grandfather. I mean, how funny. I mean, that is just brilliant. Just witty and quip, and a bit like, "Oh, you're a Jedi, so you lift things." Well, that
yeah,
seems to be the
voting rock.
a theme, a sort of now a running
Yeah,
joke, doesn't it, in the new era of Star Wars? You're a
yeah,
Jedi, so you lift things. So I
you lift
thought
things.
that was quite a funny, nice little nod as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's remember, even going back to when he finds the lightsaber, when he uncovers his lightsaber in Tatooine, it's not just his, it's Anakin's as well. So there's kind of that duality to what we see at the end of
Yeah,
the Rise of Skywalker about, yeah, exactly. And it's nice that it's kind of in a similar kind of box to what we see. He kind of uses
yeah.
with Luke and that in A New Hope
And,
and
and of
that.
course, we see that box again, don't we, in A New Hope?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the same one. But
I'm
I mean, I
pretty
have to
surprised
say,
if it wasn't.
yeah, exactly. I have to say, actually, give him like credit because that desert, there was nothing around there. So how the hell he remembered where it was? He just kind of like gets off EOP. Yeah, there you go, and he's like, oh yeah, that's the point. I 4 paces from that sand dune and turn left here and job done.
It's the kyber crystal in it. I bet you it's the kyber
Yeah,
crystal in the
possibly.
Jedi's
Yeah, there you go.
in the lightsaber.
Exactly. Yeah, you could feel the resonance of the kyber crystal from that.
Yeah.
So near the end of the second episode, anyway, we get a bit of hide and seek, don't we? We get Reva kind of searching for Obi-Wan in that cargo hold and she's moving boxes and stuff. And she is the one who basically breaks the news to Obi-Wan that Anakin is still alive. I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that because, at least in my head canon, and possibly from what I've read in the comics, it was a very closely guarded secret. Like Palpatine knew, obviously, but there wasn't many people that knew, and I don't think the Inquisitors were aware of like Anakin and the Vader kind of connection. So for her to know must mean something. And maybe in my headcanon, or at least my thought is, if she knows, maybe she is the one who then holds Obi-Wan responsible for turning Anakin to Vader
Yeah.
and even like and there for the whole Order 66.
Well, it's quite interesting. It goes back to what we were saying at the start about that young Jedi
Yeah.
at the start. Maybe what happened was she saw Order 66, she saw Anakin coming in, and so she went to Anakin's side.
Yeah.
It could be that when Order 66 happened, she defected almost in a way at that young age and decided, oh, do you know what? I'm going to be on the winning side of this battle,
Yeah.
and I'm going to go with Master Anakin. I'm not going to go with Master Kenobi, and he is the evil one. He is the one that does it all. And I thought Ewan McGregor's reaction to it, the news, was spot on.
Yeah. I mean, I myself was hoping for a more of a like a moment like we got in Rebels when Ahsoka found out, because actually she was kind of in
Yes.
combat, and I think that at least obviously we still got 4 more episodes, but for me anyway, that was probably one part that I was a little bit disappointed about, because I was thinking if it has to almost be like Obi-Wan figuring it out rather than him being told secondhand. So now whether or not actually, he believes her is another matter, but you kind of think, at least from that reaction, that he's definitely suddenly kind of going, oh, is he? Could he be? I mean,
Yeah.
actually, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think generally,
I think we have to give, I think one thing we have to do is give a nod to the false Jedi.
oh my god, yeah, Haji, whatever his name is, I've forgotten his guy's name.
From Eternals, Marvel Eternals. He's an actor
Yes,
in that.
he is, and we were talking about it actually on Making Tracks, so I should know this because we actually said how good he is, and probably by the time I find any information on IMDb, somebody would have put it in the chat. But it's Camille Nanjiani is the actor's name, and yeah, I mean I thought that whole notion of I'm going to take you to the Jedi, absolutely genius, and the way he just kind of walks in and he just closes the shutters and he uses like a magnet to cool the comm.
Yeah.
It was just like it's really brilliant. And the fact that Obi-Wan's just like, nah, not even, don't even try it on me. I think it was really
Yeah.
nice, and I'm hoping he'll be in more episodes. So
Yeah, I think so. It'll be interesting to see, because obviously he comes up to Reva and he says, "No, I'm the Jedi that captured Princess Leia." And Reva's going, "Hey, I don't think so, mate." And then reads his mind and takes him out of it. And of course, the reaction of him is great. But yeah, hats off to him. That was a great role to have played. It was really funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, exactly. I agree with what Evans just said. I hope to see him again. He's kind of like a magician and a con man. I mean, that has got a Star Wars Marvel comic series written all over it. Just the whole kind of grifter side of you conning people, but at the same time, he took those credits from that family. But from what he said, it was they were going to Corellia. They had been rescued, so.
Yeah.
There's kind of about like yin and yang kind of like balance of like, like we see a lot in the galaxy. Everybody's got their own kind of moral code, and it seems like credits is the one thing that motivates a lot of people. So
Yeah.
therefore, um, we'll
Oh,
see
brilliant.
how that
That,
balances. Now, this is quite interesting, isn't it? Seeing Reva turn on the Inquisitor like she did, because they'd been kind of like butting heads for the whole first two episodes, and he pulls her aside, very early on in the first episode, and kind of says, cool your jets, just this isn't the way we do stuff. Now, you've seen Rebels, I've seen Rebels. We know the Grand
yeah.
Inquisitor survives, so I assume that he must have some better like regenerative, abilities or Bacta or something. But do you think that this is now Reva off on her own?
Well, I think this is probably Reva off on her own under the guidance of Darth Vader.
Mm,
I
okay,
think
yeah,
I think that he is so obsessed and so angry still with it all, and Padme dying, etc., etc. I think that he is so torn by it. She's defected. She's the new Ahsoka.
yeah,
For him, she is his apprentice, so to speak.
could be, yeah,
It could be something along those lines. So I think we probably haven't seen the last of the Grand Inquisitor. I hope not. I think to have taken him out like that so early on is a shame in my opinion. But because I would like to have seen how it did develop. But I
yeah,
think that may be a trajectory that they're going to take with it.
exactly. Maybe it creates a triple threat kind of perspective. He's now
Yeah,
got Reva chasing him, and the Inquisitors kind of chasing him, but also they're chasing her now as well. So,
yeah.
but it's pretty much almost time for us to go and head out of here. So, final thoughts on the first two episodes of
Final
Kenobi?
Final thoughts. I'm looking forward to seeing where we're going with seeing Darth Vader Anakin at the end, coming out of the back to tank and seeing where that's going to go. I think that's an interesting. That was like a real grip holder to do it.
Yeah.
And the words are, "Move over, baby Yoda. Young Leia's back in."
Absolutely. I feel like it's kind of balanced things a little bit. And actually, to be fair, as Mark Howard actually says in the chat, they do have that connection right at the end, don't they? That's when Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of like reconnect. There's suddenly, now we know at least for the next 4 episodes, the hunt is on. They both
Yeah,
know that both survive, so therefore, I think the stakes are gonna be ramped up exponentially for the next episode, which
yeah.
I can't wait for. So.
Oh, absolutely. It was a joy and a pleasure to be awake at 5 o'clock this morning watching it. I would do it. I'm going to do it all over again. I'm going to go home now and, I'm going to go out of here. I'm driving down to Gatwick tonight. And then tomorrow I've downloaded onto my iPad to watch Revenge of the Sith, the 2 Kenobis, Rogue One, and I'm going to sit and I've downloaded the Claudia Gray books again about Leia. I'm going to have basically a Star Wars fest for a week and just then try and work out in my head where this is all going. And then I'll get it completely wrong. And then when I record Planet Leia, I'll tell you all about it again where I've gone completely wrong. But brilliant, just brilliant. Hats off to them all for that show. That's definitely been the best of the new series so far for me.
Brilliant. Well, look, Claire, thank you very much for joining me. And
Mark,
also,
thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure.
it's been fun, hasn't it? We'll have to do this again, so when you're back from Egypt and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So, everybody who has joined us in the chat, thank you very much for your comments and your thoughts and your theories. Big shout out to Brian, who's been working behind the scenes this time. He's not on camera. He's been the one who's been firing up the images and stuff like that. So, if you want to check out fanfortracks.com for any news, obviously Fanfortracks TV for any more reviews, and also the podcasts which are on Fanfortracks Radio. You can check out me on Making Tracks, Claire on Planet Leia, and a lot of extra amazing, fantastic content coming up there. And of course, we're going to have a Making Tracks live episode, live from Celebration, which doesn't include me, coming up next, I think, on the radio channel. So Until then, take care, and I guess may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Keep up to date with the latest Star Wars news each and every day on FanthaTracks.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Tumblr, and Pinterest at FanthaTracks. And be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and follow FanthaTracks TV to be alerted to new content and to be a part of our live